So I want to talk a little bit about a project that I've been working on for the past few months called Tonic. Who here already knows about Tonic? Okay, you guys are going to be learning it. My name is Wolf Rentzsch. I'm one of the few people you will probably ever meet whose name could actually fit into emoji. These are my co-founders here. Francisco is the guy with long hair. Ross is the guy with short hair, and this is me. This is actually a selfie of me in the morning before I shave. I shaved right before I came here. You already see how far I've gone. So first thing is, so what's Tonic? So Tonic is Node's most awesome REPL. Now you may be asking yourself, well, what's a REPL? And that is how you pronounce REPL, by the way. You probably, if you use Node, if you use JavaScript, you've probably already dealt with a REPL. You might just not have called that. So this is a REPL. That's me executing Node, and it's waiting for my command. This also is a REPL. In Chrome, in Safari, in Firefox, that sweet little development environment that pops up surprisingly on all your web pages once you invoke the magic. You can call that a REPL. You notice that the tab actually says console there. Some people call it a console. Some people call it command line. Some people call it a terminal. When I think of console or terminal, this is what I think of, 1970s, green screen type stuff, so I don't like to use that name. REPL is, of course, an acronym for read, eval, print loop. And it is like all the best computer sciencey type stuff is that it comes from Lisp. And so it's actually just pretty much stands for the implementation, which I think is actually pretty cool. You read a line, you evaluate it, you print it, and then you do it again. You loop. So REPL is just something that reads in commands, evaluates them, prints out the results, and goes again. So what are REPLs good for? So as you saw with inside the Chrome, you have the console tab. With Node, you have the command line environment right there. You can, I don't know about you, but a lot of times I want to I know there's this class, I know there's this method, I want to try using it somehow. And okay, I blow up 3 times and I figure out the magic combination. And then, okay, I figure it out, I can go do my real work in a text editor. So REPLs are great for throwaway code. Environments like Node and your Chrome console tab are very not persistent. They vanish very easily, so you don't want to put a lot of work in there. It's like the TRS-80s of the 1980s. Turn off the power, so everything's gone. But you might actually be tempted to prototype some code in there, and I'm also a big fan of that, because you can actually build up a lot of object graphs, add methods to classes, and call things, and actually kind of work out a design for a prototype before you actually go into your persistent text editor. Production code. I would say most people here would say REPLs have no place in production code. I would disagree, because I am a small talker. I believe in database-oriented development environments, image-based ones, where basically you build up the entire environment in a command-like environment or REPL. But for some reason, the 1970s is the current present, so people think that we just should all be doing our stuff with dead software in text editors. They don't want live software that you can manipulate and incrementally build on. I'm not going to fight that war tonight, but you know my opinion. I think we can use this production code, and Tonic takes us a little bit of the way there. So, like everything, I like fighting. I like fighting because it's a way to kind of boil things down to the essence. Let's have these two things fight, and let's see what the winner is, and see what punches they throw, what punches they pull. So let's talk a little bit about what the differences is between the Node REPL and Tonic. So I left a slide in there. This is the version 2 of that slide. It's better. So, and unfortunately, I think some is scrolled off, but that's OK. So the bullet point that's scrolled off is that's easier and faster. With Node, the Node REPL is great. And it launches fast. And that's actually, in terms of like launching stuff and immediately using it, that's one of the reasons I immediately fell in love with Node. Back when Ryandahl like first came out with it, like 0.2, I launched this thing, and at that point, I was using like Java to do web apps, and like I could get in and out so quickly that, and like I could do 3 things by the time my Java app actually launched. Like I just gave up. I just went JavaScript. So Tonic is faster and easier than the Node REPL because it's a create a new tab, it's already there. And what's most important is that usually with Node, Node is a pretty primitive environment. You have to usually use packages to get any work done. So packages are like one of the best things about Node, that we have, what, 200,000 of them nowadays. And it's, so the first thing I have to do when I use the Node REPL is that I have to do npm init -y. Because like, if you specify the -y, then it's going to stop asking you all these questions. I just want to create something that I can put in packages so I can actually launch a REPL and use this package to figure out how to even use this package. So we've taken care of all of that for you. Let me see if I can actually scroll up here. There we go. npm init, why no more? Let me pull this out of the way so we can actually see that. We had a last-minute notebook switch here, so my screen resolution isn't quite right, but everything else I think will work great. So Tonic is more powerful than the Node REPL. Node REPL is that, who here uses NVM? OK, good. So I don't know about you, but it doesn't happen that often, but it happens. That I will start writing some Node code, and then I will decide, oh, unfortunately, production's on Node 10, Node 010. Like, or this is like, oh no, I could use Node 4 now. Awesome, I should upgrade this, right? But I'm already in this REPL, and this REPL is, it will fly away in the wind, right? It's very temporary. Like, crap, I have to copy the code out, use NVM to tell what version I want, then launch Node, and then I can paste it back in and actually, and God help me if I build an object graph, then I got to recreate all that stuff. With Tonic, it's a pull-down menu. You choose what Node version you want, and it's there. You don't have to reload any of the code or anything like that. Who here knows Babel? Good. Babel is the current premier transpiler. So we've taken Babel farther, and we've built it in. So that all the kind of Babel goodness that usually it's like, I'm going to get serious here, and I'm going to use some cool language features that Node doesn't support yet, or my browser doesn't support yet. I'm going to invoke the Babel. And then you have a little 5 to 10, 15-minute production there to actually get it working. It's worth it, but we've taken that pain away. Visualizers. This is, the Node REPL is textual. The Chrome console can do more because it's HTML-y. You have the pull-down menus. You can look inside arrays. You can inspect things a lot better. We take it a step further than that. Cells. So most REPLs, like Node, and console, like inside Chrome, you get an environment, and that's it. With Tonic, it's more of a notebook kind of environment, where each cell stands alone but can feed into the next, which ends up being enormously powerful. Time travel. I'm just going to kind of leave that out there, and I'll talk about it later about what's your appetite. And one of the things about REPLs is that they go away. They're transient. Transient, that's the word I was looking for. And I don't know about you, but so often I'll be like working out something, and I'll close the window, and then like 10 minutes later, like, oh, I wish I didn't close that window, because like actually I worked something out, and I wish I copied that code or it's still around. So with Tonic, does everything saved automatically. We give everything a big old hash, so it's ugly, but it's searchable, so that all the code you enter in there is there forever, and you can find it later if ever you need it again. And it's shareable. So REPLs, being very transient and very much localized on your machine, are not very shareable. Usually when I need to share stuff out of REPL, I use JS for that. And That's very limited. So that with Tonic, every notebook has a URL that is initially private, and obviously you can copy that URL and give it to your friend, and they can access that notebook right away. You also can publish it, but I'm going to get ahead of myself. And finally, reusable. This is where the production slide comes in, where when you think of REPLs, you think of transient things. You think of kind of like a workbench with some scraps of wood that you're using to like jig things up so you can cut it and you throw a piece of wood away. I'm saying let's go beyond that. And let's make it so that these little scraps of wood, these things we're gluing together, things we're screwing together to make a bigger whole, what happens if you don't have to throw them away? What happens if you just can incrementally keep building on them? I think I can do the real slides now. This is going to be kind of screwy because of the resolution change, but so one of the things I mentioned is data visualizers. Yeah. About one of the things, so Node is limited that it has that textual output. It actually does a really good job for the limited textual output it has. It's a textual output. Chrome does a better job because it has HTML at the ready. So it can do things like allow you to walk those arrays in a cool way, look at objects, and you don't have to remember like, oh, you know, console.log object, like, oh, I'm actually interested in this thing that's 3 members deep. Okay, now console.log that, I have to restart the app. No, keep everything running, keep everything in memory, keep everything live. Let's stop dealing with dead software. So in terms of data visualizers, everything in gray here is par for course. You must be this tall to enter. Who cares? We support that. The things I want to talk to you about tonight is the things on the right in darker black. So these are some of the data visualizers that we support. HTML. So a string looks like it has some HTML in it, we'll show you what the HTML will render to. Arrays. If you have an array of numbers, we give you an option to view them as graphs. Makes a ton of sense because you might want to use this for some poor man's data visualization. For buffers, Node loves buffers. And guess what? This is only going to show you what? The first 16 bytes if you actually console.log that in Node REPL. This not only gives you a lot more, but also allows you to view it in ASCII, which is invaluable, let me tell you. URLs. We all know that JavaScript doesn't have real URLs. It doesn't have like NSURL in Cocoa. But if it looks like a URL to us, we're just going to go and HTTP get it for you. And then we're going to come back with the results, and we're going to put in this nice table for you so you can actually look and see what that URL will resolve to. Regular expressions. It's one of my favorite things. It's a little thing, but it really helps. You write out a regular expression there, the /a/g thing. This line here, the ABBA, and yes, that is a reference to the switch band. It's actually matching. In the green, it tells you where the regular expression is doing the match. So the ABBA there, that's mutable. You can type anything you want in. So you can write a regular expression, then you can immediately try out to see if your inputs match what you think it should match. And it's a great way to iterate and getting your regular expression just right. One of the things we support, and I love tweets like this, right? Because like you push something out in the world, and you hope you don't hear crickets. And you just, from people that you've never heard of, that you never probably would have ever heard of, you get a response saying your stuff is cool. Like, that's fantastic. So this is one of my favorite tweets here. This guy has used Tonic and its GeoJSON support to do basically a map of all the bicycle rental stations in Barcelona. And I will zoom in on this because this code is actually important and a segue to my next point. And that, so we're using a thing here called await. And this is part of ES7, the next version of JavaScript, not ES6. And you have it today with Tonic. So this solves the pyramid of doom. The callback hell. Exactly. It was pioneered by C#. Microsoft did stellar work here. And it turns out that you get a wait on a promise, and then the code looks synchronous. And then you have a function that you need to put the async keyword in front of it. And what that does is that it basically tells Babel or JavaScript, what's actually supports it, V8, that rewrite this code in continuation passing style, but you don't need to know what it means. You just need to know that it makes asynchronous code look synchronous. And it rewrites it all for you, and it's totally awesome. It really simplifies things. What's that? Yeah. So this is the segue I was talking about, that Tonic is about the best possible JavaScript. And I'm sorry, this is all over the map, but you get it. Yeah, it's actually worth me moving things around here. If you want to know exactly what ES6 and ES7 support we have, you go to that URL. It's pretty easy to remember, tonicdev.com/tonic/ Wow, I had you guys going there. But in terms of what we support, what do you think we should support, right? What a modern Node environment should support. Of course, modern Node with all the goodness of Babel. So error functions, destruction, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to read this list to you. You can see it's a lot. But the thing that, you probably didn't see that, these two things, the things in blue and red, are the things I want to mention tonight. I don't know why this is not going forward. Nope. Apparently I was just assigned to wait here. This being a React user group, I thought you'd be interested to know that yes, we support JSX. You do have to require React first, which makes a ton of sense. But after that, you can see that you can put your divs here. Oh my God, how did that happen? And one thing to notice is that you do need to use render to string, because even though you're executing this in the browser, this code gets marshaled off, sent off to a Node Docker container, gets executed in a Node environment. You are executing server-side here, even though you're writing in your browser, so that you have to be aware of that. But other than that, it's awesome. So, yeah. Sorry, the notebook is not responding again. That's the main thread, man. It will kill you every time. I guess, I guess I got ahead of myself. I already kind of walked you through the wait code here. So. OK, so NPM is a big deal. It's one of the things that makes Node so awesome. It's a lightweight publishing platform that everyone can contribute to, that everyone does, and even me. And it's, for better or for worse, and I would argue for better, there's a lot of micro libraries out there, nano libraries, like 3 lines of code wrapped up into a Node package module that you can right? Like, I like it. I think I like it. So basically, if this command actually worked, this is what we've done for you. So we've downloaded every single version of every single package for you. This is why I say it's easier than using the Node REPL, because literally every byte that NPM has, we are pulling down in real time, and we're adding to our collection. Thank you. That's currently 4.3 terabytes.
Oh, wow. Oh, revenue, 400 a day. Why?
So you have it. So you don't have to worry about it. So so NPM, we put out a blog posting on this today, is that they added us to npmjs.com so that any package you find on npmjs.com, you now can easily try in Tonic. You click on that link. Thank you. It is the best way to figure out these packages, have the lightweight REPL that's also savable, right? So it ends up being a surprising amount of work to get this all working, but For the more technically minded around you, at least in terms of like DevOps type mindsets, that we are using AWS. We're currently deployed on EC2. We are using Elastic Block Store, EBS, for storing all this data. We're using LVM, Logical Volume Manager, on Linux, so that as our storage fills up, we can throw another terabyte log on the fire and keep us warm. So, turns out to be a little bit more complicated than what I thought going into this about how to do this all. I'm like, we download all their bytes. Already kind of hard, but it seems easy. Like, what happens in the simplistic kind of ideal case in your head about how you use NPM? It's not how it actually works. And so Heraclitus, one of my favorite pre-Socratic philosophers, had this idea that you can't step in the same river twice, because pull your foot out, put it right back in, the river's moved on. That is NPM. So pop quiz hotshot. What happens? So you install some packages, and then you delete them, and you wait a day. And then you do it again. Is that repeatable? Maybe, maybe not. It depends on how NPM is updated. If you're depending on package foo, and it depends on package bar, even if you hard code, I want version 123 of foo. Maybe that requirement on bar, maybe that's not so exacting. And maybe bar has released a new version in that day. It's not repeatable. And one of the things that we think Tonic is great for is reproduction of bugs. So this is a bug I filed that I linked to a notebook that says it includes a code, simple reduced test case. This is great for package maintainers, right? It's like, I don't even need to look at your pull request or anything like that. I just need to go to this notebook, hit the big green run button, and it's like, oh, that's obviously not right. So I have a simplified reproduction right there. However, NPM is a river. Rivers keep moving on. Can't put your foot in this twice. What happens if they release a bug-fixed version of it, and then they go look at my notebook? Like, oh, what are you doing sending bogus pull requests? This is obviously not having a bug. Like, well, actually, no, it is a bug. And so I'll get ahead of myself here. So one of the things we do is that when you create a notebook and when you do require, is that we timestamp it. And that is your toe in the pot. Toe in the river, I guess, in this case. So that then everything you looked at, when you go and you require packages, we use that timestamp as our anchor into what reality you should see. There's a bunch of facets of time travel in my talk here, but this is just one of them, right? I should really remove that Heraclitus quote further up to seem more like philosophical that way, but So we do that. Your notebooks can get stuck in time, that you're like, hey, I know this package released in bug fix that I need. Why am I not getting it? All you need to do is delete your require, re-add it. We'll notice it. We'll get the latest version for you, because you've now updated your timestamp. So we haven't documented that anywhere, but only one person asked, but now all you guys know. And apparently, there we go. OK. This is very fitting for 2015, time travel. Each cell in a Tonic notebook is checkpoint. So this is kind of lame, but the video that's on our website, I'm going to show it to you because it tells the story better than I can. So we're going to write some code here where we're going to touch the file system. We're going to write a file to /temp. And we're just going to write hello into it. We're going to make sure it exists. And does it? Yes, it does exist. Then we're going to delete it. And then, does it exist? Of course it doesn't exist. False. Now we're going to go to the second cell and going to read it. Now remember, we've deleted the file, right? But it's not deleted in the second cell. So this is very like kind of brain warping thing where I've gone back in time, but only like to the second cell, and I've restarted causality. So this one's a little bit more fun. Who doesn't always want to beat the computer at rock, paper, scissors? So this is great because so computer picks randomly rock, paper, scissors. I pick, and I'm going to just, I pick rock, right? And oh no, computer wins. But fortunately, I can go back to cell 2. I can now change that to, let's see, what did computer pick? Paper. So I will go with scissors. I can hard code scissors in there, replay from cell 2. I will beat the computer. Finally, this is what my life has led up to, beating the computer. How I pull this off is that we looked at a lot of possibilities for how to implement this stuff. And like, who here uses VMware, Parallels, VirtualBox? So you hit the suspend button on those, right? It's a great feature, right? Save the world, I'm going home. But that takes a while, right? And it takes a while because you have gigs of RAM to dump onto your drive. You have all sorts of state you have to write out. It's suspending a virtual machine is expensive. This has to be. Fortunately, there's this project called Cryo. Checkpoint restore in user space. It turns out ptrace plus /proc is a powerful drug. What this means is that this is built into the Linux kernel now. And Cryo is an ongoing project. It works today. It's bleeding edge, but it works today. ptrace is the API that GDB uses to actually freeze a program, saying, stop, halt all your threads, don't run them, because I'm going to be looking at your memory. And then /proc is the Linux API that gives you, basically, kind of takes all this process environmental information and exposes it via the file system. So you can easily walk a process's RAM via /proc. You can easily look at the sockets it has open. You can look at the file descriptors it has open. You can read its entire state. And that's what Cryo does. And it turns out that instead of having to wait 15 seconds for your VM to write 8 gigs to your SSD, it tends to take a quarter of a second. That's how we pull it off. So one thing you should know is that essentially what we're doing here is that we take the entire node process that your code is executing in, we checkpoint it. We use Cryo to dump its RAM, to dump its file descriptors, all that. That's still not enough because there's a file system component. And I'll talk about it a little bit later about how we pull that off with Docker and AUFS. Back up to a higher level, sharing. I mentioned that the problem with REPLs is that they're transient and private, right? That's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Tonic is persistent and shareable. So every single notebook you put up there gets a URL. That's up to you. If you want to share it, fine. If not, that's fine too. It's a long, big hash, so that if you don't share it, no one's going to guess it. You're probably in pretty good shape. But what's interesting here, and this is where we get into the production stage of things again, is that notebooks can be published and reused by other notebooks. So here's an example. I have one notebook here that uses standard node syntax to export a variable. And I just don't set the variable to 42, like all our Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy fans want me to set it to. I do set it to a statement here. So that way you know what things are executing. I'm not just like putting variable stuff in them and then like serializing them somehow. This is actually execution going on here. And then I have a client of this notebook. And you see the familiar require syntax here, right? But instead of requiring a package per se, you're requiring a notebook. And yes, we already claimed a notebook on NPM, so don't worry about that. And it passes a function that knows how to actually fetch notebooks from either your private collection or all of Tonic. And I put in my URL here. And also notice we use some semantic version here, some verbs. When you publish something, you always put it under semantic version. That's non-negotiable. And you get back the answer. So now you can start to see how you have a notebook, and let's say you have a standard type environment that you want to set up and you want to share across notebooks. You can very easily require that inside Tonic and use that. We also support embedding, which I guess I thought I had another slide on, but I'll just tell you about it. Embedding allows you to put essentially a one-cell Tonic notebook on any web page. And man, I'm sure I had, what's the other slide on? There it is. I got it out of order. So this is how you do it. It's pretty much works like you think it would. You put our asynchronous script tag up there. And you might have a chunk of JavaScript here, right? And so you call our script telling us what the element ID is of what you want to turn into an embedded notebook. And it's done. So then you get a big run button as if you could execute it on a node environment right from a web page. It's pretty cool. I will go back to this since I misordered these slides. One of the reasons why we like promises and we like a way to sync is that it makes it very easy to talk to HTTP APIs, web endpoints. The downside to this is that while it's easy to write this code and share with people, you probably don't want to be putting your private password or your private token in your notebook. So we have a special place where you can store your credentials, or we have a couple of integrations built in, Twitter and GitHub. So if you want to write something that fetches Twitter, but you want to publish that notebook, you don't want to share your OAuth key, that's all handled for you. We are built to integrate with the web. So I want to talk a little bit about how we've extended React a little bit. So we've written Lambda immutable. And so Lambda is this basically functional data structure-y, algorithm-y library for JavaScript. It's a lot more composable than your for eaches or your ray.maps. It's very chainable. I run hot and cold in Lambda myself. Francisco just loves it. Sometimes it looks like line noise to me, so we'll see. But sometimes it's just what you need. My problem with that is that it introduces a vocabulary that covers a lot of, that covers everything you need, but it's kind of its own vocabulary. It's goes beyond the standard functional stuff. So I encourage you to check it out. You might love it, you might hate it. Immutable.js is Facebook's library for giving us immutable data structures in JavaScript in efficient ways. It's pretty awesome. So basically, we've tied them together, and that's the package we're using. And these packages I'm talking about is that we've been running like crazy for the past few months, but we do want to release these on GitHub eventually. And I thought we'd already have it done, but we just have a lot to do. So it's coming. Pure render. A lot of React libraries out there have routing built in. You kind of need that. We have this thing called a cursor, where a cursor is basically it's an object and a key path. And then you can memorize it, and so that's more efficient when you're pulling things out, and we put notifications along with it. So it gets you very much along with your no closure, very much more along those lines. Components. We have components for text editing, where you actually enter your text in Tonic is CodeMirror. And CodeMirror is its own world, and we kind of have to wrap it, and this helps with that. We also have a bunch of other components for implementing things like switches in a kind of a tag declarative form, component form. And probably the hardest thing here is supporting undo, which I think we actually do a pretty good job of. You should try it out. Undo is one of these things that's hard to get right, and we have that. It took us a while, but we got to work it. Some implementation details about how all this magic works. We use Docker extensively. I wouldn't call myself a Docker evangelist, but I have reached a point where I think your default choice would be to use Docker. You have to usually argue against why it doesn't fit. And we definitely have things that don't fit. One thing I haven't mentioned at all in this talk is that we're doing Fuse, a file system user space plugin for handling some of the NPM path module stuff. And that's something that is totally not friendly to containerization. That's fine. We run it as a daemon. There's a lot of stuff we have to run as a daemon. That's fine. But Docker is the real deal. It makes both development and deployment a lot easier. I highly recommend it. One thing that you should know if you are currently using Docker or if you are thinking of using Docker is that device mapper is bad and AUFS is good. See, that is even terrible. Okay. Wow, okay. I have no idea how that worked. Anyway, so Docker was born on the system called AUFS, which is superfied awesome. AUFS is an onion file system. You can think of it, and you know how you use Git when you're like doing commits? And imagine if that was just like built into your file system. That as you just like, you're like, I'm deleting this file, I'm putting this new file here, I'm overwriting this file. Imagine if that just, all those Git commits were just implicit. That's what AUFS is. It's an onion file system. And that how it works is that there are layers. Like an onion, skin, paper, whatever. And so if you delete a file, instead of actually deleting the file, it puts a tombstone there, saying that file is deleted. So logically, that file isn't there anymore on two upper layers. Put a file there, it's not visible to lower levels, but is there. And you start to perform these temporal boundaries, again with the reverse thing. So AUFS, superfied awesome, but it was not, it's been proposed and submitted to the Linux mainline kernel. It's been rejected. So their solution, like, oh, we don't need this stuff because we have something that's almost as good, device mapper. And so I'm using device mapper the way it's meant to be used with LVM currently, supporting our terabytes of NPM. Device mapper is not a good fit for Docker. When we were having to use it, we were running into those transient failures all the time. So granted, this was 3 months ago. Maybe something has magically been fixed. I've not heard anything about this. But what no one is telling you, and what you should know, is that use AUFS. Do not use device mapper. That everyone else is telling you to use. Don't use it. It's a little bit of more pain to set up AUFS. You have to like rev your kernel. That's just an apt-get, dist upgrade, apt-get upgrade, update. I don't know. Magic commands. If you want it, know, I can email them to you. Yeah. Oh, man. This is our supporting cast. I thought I'd go through. I loves me some DigitalOcean. Cheap, great. Oh, I wish we could have stayed on. Like, and just like, you know, I'm a Mac guy. I really care about user interface. Their user interface is so much better than AWS. But it's like, the problem is, man, we have terabytes of storage needs. DigitalOcean is like, oh, you know, they kind of do lockstep stuff, where it's like, you get more CPUs along with more storage, and then they max out, and you don't have anything. You probably could have done a cluster. That probably would have been hella expensive and a lot more complication. You decided not to do it and jump to AWS, which is a story in here that when we set this all up, we did not hard code anything to DigitalOcean. We are still not hard coded to AWS. We could, in theory, jump tomorrow back to DigitalOcean. We are using these providers, these VPS providers, as commodities. And there's probably not a good reason not to treat them as commodities and not to stay that flexible. So I just do it. I mean, yes, AWS, I think I read that it's bigger than the next three combined. I believe that. They're huge, right? And that helps. But I don't know. I don't want to tie my boat to them. And it's not technically expensive not to tie your boat to them. So why do it? As I mentioned, we're using both AC2 and EBS. We're actually not using too many of their services. All said and done. Of course, I forgot. Everyone just assumes S3. Yeah, we're using S3. Circle CI, Circle Continuous Integration. So I joined the two guys, other guys up there. They were already into it 2 months, 3 months, something like that, when they gave me the call and wanted me to jump in. And by that time, Ross had already set up a continuous integration system with Circle. And if you haven't done continuous integration, so in my prior life, I was a contractor. And that was very much kind of one of these things where you're dropped into the woods naked with a knife in your teeth. Like you gotta build shelter first. You just gotta Like, can't trust anyone, bears come in, I don't know. So it's like, it's very non-trustworthy environment, and you're not paid to make friends, you're paid to get shit done. So that's what I do. And so you don't try to sell people on continuous integration in that environment. So it was very luxurious to arrive this, because this was already set up and tests were written. And don't get me wrong, it was a definite upfront cost. I think Ross probably ended up spending 2 weeks on it initially. I'm sure it cost him many more, probably another couple weeks since then in incremental time. It is worth it. There's like a peace that comes over you when you, exactly, right? It's one of these things where it's like, when you're just like living off master, everyone's off master, and you can push anything you want. And if it gets past test, it's going live automatically. Like, deploying 10 times a day is not a thing. It's not a big deal. We just do it. Now, there are obviously days where we don't deploy things for many days because we're working on a branch somewhere or whatever. But it's just like, this is terms of like stress relief, where you know if you push something and it doesn't work out, it's not going to hit deployment. It's not going to go to deployment. But if it does, it's just going to automatically go there. Totally worth it. It's just from a stress reduction standpoint, from a quality of life standpoint, it's worth you putting that investment in there. I've also heard good things about Travis. I haven't used it myself. It seems similar, so use that. We loved Circle CI. Unfortunately, we had to leave it. We had to run a custom Docker, and they did not support that, so we had to give up on that. So we moved to Jenkins, running on AWS for that. And it is a much worse environment, but hey, it's getting the job done. Papertrail, we shoved 15 gigabytes of logs to them last month. They shut us off. That was way too much. We really should cut that down. But they're really great if you use them sanely. /var/log/sys syslog gets filled up real fast. And Papertrail has a great search interface on that, and they'll keep it for you for months and stuff like that. It's worth the money, use them. Datadog is great for everything else, for storing like random metrics, like how fast your site is responding, how many user sign-ups you're doing, statistics tracking. We're using Datadog for that. Uptime Robot, I love Uptime Robot. Uptime Robot is a free site that just like pings your website for every 5 minutes, and then we feed that into PagerDuty. That actually will do a thing where like actually will give you a computerized voice call when your site is down, which is I was totally against, except that you actually do probably need the phone ringing, because I don't know about you, but when I'm sleeping, I sleep through text pings. But if a phone's actually ringing, it wakes me up. So that's double-edged sword. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Probably my current biggest regret, and it's not really a regret because we shipped, but man, we are super custom. We're running a custom Docker, we're running a custom Cryo, we're running custom nodes. And all these have reasons behind them. And they're all, I'd probably make the same decision, but it hurts to not be able to just like git pull master, or in Docker land, Docker, whatever the command is to run the latest version. Like, it hurts. And so we're doing the thing where we're being a good open source citizen, that we're shipping our patches, we're waiting for them to be accepted, we're working them. Docker right now is in turmoil, where they're like switching their like monolithic thing to libc and not libc, libcontainer and libnetwork or something. They're basically re-architecting the internals. So it's like every day they break our rebase. So it's like we're just waiting for them to kind of settle down. But yes, we're trying to push everything, all these good, really technical bits back to the open source community. That way we don't have to run custom stuff, and that way everyone gets to suffer our bugs. So that's it. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
What was the process like of getting in? Or did they come to you, or how that?
We approached them. We not something we we didn't want to talk to them before we shipped, right? Because proof is input. We wanted them to use the site to see if they. And then, fortunately, so the two guys that were up on that third slide or whatever, past my emoji name, was they at the time they were both living in San Francisco, and that helps a lot. Just because San Francisco, a lot of people know each other, and I know a lot of people. So between all three of us, we end up like finding a person who knows a person, and we sent that person's boss an email, and that was enough to introduce us. And we pitched them, and they're like, "Cool, yeah, yeah."
So what's your monetization / paying for
Yes.
all this stuff?
Yeah, so we raised some capital to bootstrap all this stuff.
Okay.
We wanted, our ideal is a GitHub style revenue model where everything remains open and free to use if you have it public. If it's private, that's where you pay. Seems to be working pretty well for GitHub.
For the workspaces?
Yeah, essentially the notebooks. So right now, like any notebook you publish in there, it's semi-private, right? If you share the URL, whatever, obviously that gets around, right? But it's a hash. People aren't going to randomly type that in. It's really hard. But if you want to have something where literally, like you need to be authenticated, like corporations are that paranoid, right? And corporations have money, so maybe we can leverage that. Yeah. Oh, yes, yes. So there's two really aspects there. There's quotas, and there's also being a good internet citizen. Quotas, there are quotas involved. Your container only runs for 5 minutes currently. I think we upped that to 10, then we'll pull it back down. I forget how long it runs. That said, you won't run into this unless you have a for loop or something's gone wrong, probably. So it's untermain for loop. In terms of like using Tonic to spam the internet, yes, we have firewall rules going out so that you can't actually like attack other people. So I mean, are you talking about the thing where if things look like a URL, we'll get it for you automatically? That's only if you have a standalone thing that ends up being a result that looks like a URL. That's something you can pretty easily avoid. Yeah, but in terms of anything, all other HTTP and HTTPS stuff is stuff you're probably going to do explicitly with request. Usually you request a promise because it really plays well with the await stuff. Was there another? Oh yeah.
I might be mistaken, but when you first launched, I thought you didn't support let constant, right?
We still don't. It's on a branch. It's not integrated yet. Turns out to be really hard. One of the things I wanted to put on the slide, but I ran out of time, is exactly how this stuff works in terms of how we have to transform your code. I made a very oblique reference to it when I said Babel Plus. So we use Babel's core, and every feature that Babel supports, you run. Not every, there's some bad things we should use. Then we go the extra mile. And what we have to do in order to make this stuff work is that if you actually have used await async, you have to declare a function being async in order for it to work with the await machinery. But you saw in the example I showed, there was no async in there because we do that for you. We take your code, we turn it into an abstract syntax tree. We then put it into a function that's marked async. And then we have to do all sorts of crazy hoisting because you want to be able to read those variables in the next cell. And so let is toxic, it's poison to that, right? The entire idea is lexical scoping. So that's hard. Fortunately, we figured out how to do it like last week. And it's like there's generators and yields and trampolines, and you wouldn't believe what we have to do to make this work. We got it working. But the other holdup, constant's less difficult, but let is the biggie. The other holdup is node form. And so I told you we have currently 4.237 terabytes of NPM. Kind of overplayed my hand there. It's not like all of NPM is like some terabytes of data. We had to duplicate things 3 times. because we support 3 node engines: Node 0.10, Node 0.12, and IOGS. So that was the simplest route to get things working. So we're like, OK, we're going to do a CP here. And it's going to run for 3 days. OK, that's cool. And so for Node 4, we could have easily just like done another CP for 3 days and supported it like almost immediately. But this is like time to pay off the technical debt. And so that was the Fuse plugin I mentioned before, about how we're actually doing path rewriting and how to deal with the craziness that is like stepping in the NPM stream twice, or NPM loader twice. It's like all that has to do, like we're dynamic like reading package.json to figure out like what's your timestamp and what's the versions that allow, then do the calculation of the semverse to see what you should actually see. We do that all for you. And I just committed yesterday, but it's not prime time yet. We have to run through more scenarios. So, but that allows us to not have to duplicate all of NPM again. And so we decided to do that before we ship Node 4. But Node 4 is coming, and so Lead Cost is also coming. Yes, so that is the things we want to support. That's coming soon.
Is this your first startup?
It is. I am not. I've never been part of. Oh, I've been part of startups where I've been a contractor, right? And I've never been wanting to like. I've always been fine being a contractor. Like, I put in hours. You give me cash, and after that we don't see each other anymore, right? It's very binary, right? Very transactional. I like that, right? And for my professional career, is stood me in good stead, because most of them, and I don't want to say it's because I did work for them. Most of them have gone under. But that's the name of the game. I mean, it's like I'm pretty sure it's not me destroying them. So this is the only reason I jumped in this. I didn't want to bore you guys with the backstory because I figured you wouldn't care. But so I know these guys from a few years back, and they're friends of mine. And we've been talking on and off through the years about how I wanted to build better developer tools and throwing ideas back and forth. So when these guys actually want to do it, and actually want to be part of it, is the first time I ever said yes. So my first startup, where I'm actually part of it. Yes? I started developing on Apple platforms. So that's my basis in like 1993. But I've read a lot of books, and I am a big fan of Lisp. And if I could actually program in Lisp every day, I would.
So this focus script, you did there?
Yes. So yes, I mean, so there's a lot of people think about Lisp and they think it's like functional and immutable stuff. Like, yeah, you can write crap, mutable, imperative code in Lisp. That's fine. Common Lisp loves that stuff. So, but it's more as like is the homoiconicity thing where the data is code and so forth. That solves so many problems with macros. Like, I miss that. I know that there's that thing for JavaScript that actually kind of implements that. Yeah, I've wanted to play with that. I have not played with that yet. That's pretty awesome. If that actually works, oh my god. But I've been so much into AST rewriting land and stuff like that. That's in JavaScript land. It's like, I haven't had time. Yes? Oh, great question. Great question. We would love to. So, obviously, like, same thing with GitHub, right? It's like they sell GitHub Enterprise. And I think I forget. It used to be that you could deploy GitHub inside your firewall on your own hardware. I think nowadays they ship you a box and they just remotely manage it or whatever. That is an obvious way to go forward for us. But that's still way past the point where we actually have private notebooks and private accounts and organizations and all the stuff GitHub has. So it's one of the ways that we'd love to move, but it's still pretty far down the road. So, I mean, if you can talk to it over the public internet, now remember, you can keep credentials in your notebook that aren't actually public, right? So, yes, you can. I guess that's one thing I should have mentioned on the presentation about implementation details is that we are using Mongo. I was very skittish about doing that. I was not a fan of Mongo going in. I've used it in anger now. It's okay. My only complaint about it now is that we run it in cluster configuration, and the Paxos election to decide who's the primary is unbounded, I guess, and it will just sometimes this doesn't work, and you have to restart and hope it works that time. Scalability seems fine. I mean, running in cluster, it's kind of weird. We're running in cluster on a single machine, but that's because we want the ease of throwing it up on multiple VMs basically overnight.
But it's not, you're not running into multi-user problems with Mongo yet?
Not yet. And don't, trust me.
Don't mean to curse you.
No. Trust me. If Mongo starts giving me problems, I'm going to be tweeting all about it, because I don't trust that thing. I'm a more Postgres guy myself. Mm-hmm. If they hadn't already gotten code working when I arrived, I would have said Postgres, and I was, made sure that happened. But working code talks a lot.
Running node inside the browser, is that simply a browser file? It seems radical.
Remember, it doesn't run in the browser, right? We take your source code, we use a WebSocket, we shuttle it through our proxy, shuttle it into a Docker container, we run the evaluator that runs Node, and then we take the results and we marshal those results back to you.
A lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of stages.
A lot of stages. Yes. A lot of things that could go wrong, but we fortunately seem to have solved most of the error cases. Okay, anything else? Okay, well, thank you.
Cool as that. Wicked. Yes.
Thank you.
Wicked is good.
Thank you. It's technically ambitious.
What the heck?
So I've got a complete view question here.
Yeah.
Underscore different than Babel here?
Yes.
I'm using underscore for like the F6 stuff. It's not available. How is Babel different from that?
Are you sure you're using underscore? Underscore is basically a utility library for JavaScript.
I'm using underscore. Everything that Node can't do, I'm using underscore on my back end. So
You're probably using like the features of it. Like
Yeah.
you want to, this is more the syntax. You write in like your
Right in.
Yeah, that's a good point. Right.
because it's given the ability to use ES6 that I used to underscore. I think there's only some uses
So that you can polyfill a lot of the new methods that were introduced in ES6 onto existing classes. That's easy to do, to polyfill them, to supply new implementations that they didn't have implementations before. So you probably think about that. But in terms of if you even using underscore, if you were to type await, syntax error.